Corporate world is stressful. You would think that after many years of working, this anxiety would go away, but I don't think it does. No. And depending on your career choices, it may become even more intense. But it doesn't mean that we are doomed to live in stress until retirement. With years, we learn ourselves, learn our limits and boundaries, as well as techniques that help us be a little less anxious. In the next 3 weeks, I will be trying 3 methods to reduce my work anxiety and will honestly tell you which one worked. Here's what we're starting with. I work in traditional corporate for 15 years. I don't think about myself as a particularly anxious person, but if you've ever worked in a company, you know that they kind of make you stress about things, and sometimes things that don't actually deserve it. Also, I manage small and mid-sized teams, and it is important because from the moment I started to be responsible not only for myself but for someone else, I think my general work stress level kind of increased. I did some research and I identified 3 different methods to reduce work anxiety. The first one is based on cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most researched and well-known ways to reduce anxiety. It is based on changing negative thought patterns that fuels your anxiety and kind of reframing them. So we recognize an anxious thoughts, reframe it, and that way we reduce the impact, emotional impact that this thought is having on us. Sounds pretty simple, right? Let's go. Hey guys, today is the first day for me to try my first method, and it is cognitive behavioral therapy. Like, not the therapy itself, but the elements of it. Today was not the easiest working day. I had a few moments where I felt pretty anxious. So my task for today is to write down some of the situations that happened with me during the day where I felt anxious, and also write down the corresponding thoughts that I had in the moment. So for example, if it was a meeting and I presented something and because of that I felt anxious, and the thought will be, I'm gonna screw this up, I'm gonna make a mistake, and I don't know, everyone will laugh at me, something. So I actually need to recall this and try to capture as precisely as possible what was I thinking in the moment. So this is what I'm gonna do now. Next 7 days I spent writing down my anxious thoughts and attempting to logically challenge them, which turned to be a bit harder than I expected. Hey guys, this is the end of my first week of experiments, and in the last 7 days I was writing down situations that would make me feel anxiety. And before I share with you my overall learnings from this experiment, I want to give you one example of how it looked like. Last week I had a leadership workshop that I was leading, and I'm not quite sure I did the very best job. There were a lot of people involved, it was a relatively public setting, so my thought was that, okay, people will see that I'm not doing a good job, which will create an impression that I'm not a good expert. But during this exercise, I reminded myself that first, I was chosen to lead this workshop, which means that people have certain trust in me, which should already mean something. The audience is actually not evaluating every small move of mine, and they're much busy with the actual content of the workshop. Even if I did not perform at my very best, people still know that I'm a good expert and I'm knowledgeable. And this workshop is just one small step on my big professional journey, and with each of the steps, I'm also improving. So here's my learnings after a week. First of all, it did help. It helped with the light or moderate level of anxiety, even if it didn't help maybe in the moment, but if I would write down the situation and reframe the thoughts at the end of my working day, I think it helped me not to think about it afterwards. If you know, you know, sometimes if something like anxious happens during your day, it can occupy you for like a few days afterwards. So with this, it did help. I had a situation of a more intense stress during this week, and I didn't notice any change, to be honest. It still was pretty tough, but I have a feeling that this practice of, reframing your thoughts is kind of like a muscle, maybe like a relatively slow muscle. So I have a feeling that if I would do this for longer, this would help me in more situations, if that makes sense. The biggest insight and kind of revelation that I had during this experiment was this. All of these good things that I came up with, if I imagine another person approaching me and telling me that, I think I would ignore it. I think the biggest value was that I was writing it down. I came up with this counter arguments against my anxious thoughts. And because of that, I believed in it much more than if an outsider would tell to me, even if it would be the person I would trust. So I think the biggest effect was through me writing it down and formulating it myself. This was the first experiment, and now on to the next. The second method is called progressive muscle relaxation. Basically, it's a technique on how to tense and relax different muscles of your body, which is supposed to help reduce like a physical tension, make us more aware about our body, and through that, reduce the stress level. And here's a drill. Every day, I take 15 minutes before or after work. I sit and I start tensing my muscle in my feet for 5 seconds and then slowly releasing it for like 10-15 seconds. And I go up muscle by muscle, each part of my body after another. So legs, abdomen, chest, arms, shoulders, and face. It's supposed to make me more aware about how anxiety physically manifests in my body and help kind of relax. And also, if I will get too nervous or anxious during the day, I can do it between the breaks. Let's see how it works out. Okay, so I'm literally in the middle of my working day and I had a call that made me feel it went good, but it made me feel kind of anxious. So I think it's a good way for me to try for the first time the muscle exercise. So I'm gonna do this right now. It's weird. I know which muscles I need to contract, but it's very hard to do it when you're just sitting. So you kind of want to do a certain movement to do this. Yeah, like I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it. So maybe I will check if there is any maybe additional guidance, because I don't know. I don't think I did it right. Oh, okay, this may be helpful. Okay, this part I got. What about legs?
All the tension in the fist toward your shin, stretching.
Ah, okay, so you're supposed to. Ah, I got it. So it's been a week since I've started my progressive muscle relaxation exercises, and I have some thoughts. So first of all, it actually worked surprisingly well, especially in the moments of the high stress or anxiety. Better than I expected. And I literally felt less tensed. Like, I don't know, like obviously there is a connection between our brain and our muscles, and having the focus shifting from the anxious thoughts to something physical that you do, it does help. With the full honesty, I did not figure it out straight away, and up until now I have a feeling that every time I would do it, I did different variations of it, which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but during this week I had to go back to the YouTube video with the tutorial even a few times because I was kind of forgetting how exactly you do these things. Maybe it's just me. And to be honest, I thought that during these muscle exercises, I thought for some reason that the biggest problem that I will have is that I will just keep thinking about stuff that bothers me. And I didn't. It seems like it requires a certain mental capacity to contract your muscles of your body, especially if you do it in an isolated manner. And this occupied me, so like I couldn't think about anything that would stress me out. And at the end of the exercise, I felt more relaxed, but to be honest, it then would return. So far, between the first one and the second one, it feels to me that the first one is more long-term systematic work, and this one is kind of like a sauce technique that I right now have in my toolkit if I need to release, like the anxiety immediately. At least I did not notice any prolongative effects of that. Maybe you need to do it for a longer time to notice that, but with breaking down your anxious thoughts type of an exercise, the prolongated effect is more obvious. Now, let's try the third method, which is called environmental modification. And the idea is to create in my working space here the environments that would make me less anxious, hopefully. And the one concept that I saw a lot of times was the concept of biophilic design. So basically you add a lot of elements of nature, the natural light, all of that in your surroundings, and you interact with it in a certain way that helps you reduce your stress. Here's what I'm supposed to do. First and foremost, I will need to set up this room, and the first thing is to bring here more plants. So you can see that I have one plant here, but actually this is the only natural plant that exists in this room. Usually it's somewhere in the back, so I don't even see it, and the point is for me to observe the nature to a certain extent. And I have other plants in my other rooms, so maybe what I will do, I will literally bring all of the plants that I have there and place it in here. Make sure your desk has access to natural light, or if that's not possible, invest in a lamp that mimics natural daylight. So I have a natural light. Let me show you. So actually from above, I can open it. Wait, maybe I can open it straight away. Hold on. Hope there are no like spiders there or anything. I'm a little bit afraid of spiders, but it doesn't seem like it. At the end of the day, there is not much sunlight in Amsterdam at this time of year either way. Then what I will need to do is every day during this week, I will need to spend 5 minutes just looking at the plants, at the natural lights, notice some of the things in it. So basically like observe the nature. And one additional exercise is if during the week I will feel particularly stressed, I would go for small walks outside somewhere where I have any type of greenery. I actually have, like I live in a pretty green area. It's end of October right now, so it's not that green, but still maybe a little bit. So that's the second part of the exercise. And finally, with the full honesty, this third exercise feels a little bit weird to me. You know, look at the plants. But I also know that sometimes things that work with our brain are not always intuitively understandable. So I decided I will just trust the process and go for it. This guy doesn't look too happy. Or does he? I don't know. I literally don't know. You would think that I know what I'm doing, but I'm actually not. How does this work? From the distance, it looks nice. But when you approach it closely, it looks creepy. Nice. Creepy. Yeah, can you see? This is what you get if you're a plant in my household. These two gentlemen will remain in here, because when I sit here, I look up here, I will watch you like you've never been watched before. Now the last thing I want to do is this. So I have this, oh my god, how do you call this even in English? These things. So you add water there and add plants, and as you can see, well, not much success, but I have something to put in here. So hold on. Oh, that's actually not bad. That's actually really nice. So next 7 days I spent surrounded by plants. I set a timer to look at them in the morning, and occasionally I would take some walks outside in the middle of the day. Hey there! So I decided to take a walk with my trusted companion, who's a little bit impatient today. It's not that I had a particularly stressful or anxious day, but I still decided to go for it anyway, to be honest. Even going out of the house already helped quite a lot. So my plan is to find a spot, sit there, look at the park and everything for a few minutes, and see if it will get better. To be honest, I don't know what to expect. It's nice that it's not raining today. Да, Киш? Иди сюда. No, he's not interested in me at all. So it's been a week since I've tried a biophilic redesign of my working space, And to be honest, I don't think it helped with anxiety that much. A part of the exercise that I also did was to take walks during the day and spend them in nature, and this did help, most definitely. But up until now, I don't know if what helped is a change of scenery, the general fact that I would step out of the room and just walk somewhere, or the fact that I did it in the park, observing nature. This I'm not sure about. In general, place does look nicer with flowers. I have like a lot of them around me now. So maybe I will keep them here just because it looks nice, but I don't feel like this would be super practically helpful. And at the beginning, I just put pots with plants on this table. I have a big table, and it was pretty messy either way, so I think they added to the messy feeling of it, and I cleaned it up the next day. And this is where I felt some difference, which makes me think that maybe for me personally, removing the irritated things around me brings me more value than bringing some nice things like plants, or at least one should follow another. First, you need to remove all of the irritating stuff, and only then add something else, because otherwise, I don't know, I don't think I even would notice it, because my eye would only catch the mess. My brain detects the mess. Thank you, Mom. So that was biophilic design methods. And now, after 3 weeks of experimenting with different methods and ways to lower the anxiety, here's the biggest thing that I've learned. Most of us are working adults, and all of us are human beings. And there are different things that we are prone to. Please stay with me, I'm making a point. Some people are anxious under pressure. Some people are getting aggressive, some cannot focus, some disassociate. And we learn these things about ourselves. What is this specific, like areas where it's challenging for us with years of our life, basically. We learn this about ourselves. To work with that, we need to accumulate some sort of a toolkit, like a number of psychological tools that we know work for us in the situation. So the biggest trick is to experiment and figure out what works for you. For example, I spent the last 3 weeks doing these experiments. Here's what it seems like works for me. I really liked a cognitive behavioral practice that I did. The first, more as a long-term approach. The second one, with the muscle relaxation, I would keep it in my mental toolkit as a sauce tool, not for a long-term effect, but rather for the situations when I'm particularly anxious or stressed. And the nature part, I don't think it did much for me, but I would definitely keep the walks, just the fact of going out and changing the scenery. I think this did help me a lot. And I encourage you to try these small things, because the more you will learn which one works for you, the better the quality of your life will be eventually. We cannot completely avoid stress, and we don't need to, but knowing these things about yourself and using it just makes it so much easier. Speaking of things that are not easy, I recently tried 30 days of networking, so if you want to watch me struggle, I will leave this video somewhere here. If you're like many of us, cannot stop thinking about work even after your work, I accumulated my best advice for you in this video. So check it out if you like. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you there or here.